Now marred by allegations, the ANC claims trillions lost in rand rigging. However, analysts cast doubt on the credibility of these assertions, raising questions about the party's narrative. Adding to the complexity is the British Standard Chartered's recent settlement that further intensifies this controversy. Joining us to unravel the intricacies and separate fact from fiction is Financial Mail's Rob Rose. Thank you so much for your time, Rob. Let's actually start off with those numbers because the SABC did quote this week the head of cartels at the Competition Commission saying that the banks pocketed 1 trillion rand a day from the rigging. And of course, we did have the Competition Commission also coming out and clarifying that that was incorrectly reported. Was it possible to make that much, though?
You know, it's one of those fictional numbers, and it's super scary that that this doesn't raise sensibility issues amongst the people who talk of those kind of sums. We saw the Star newspaper had it on their front page, trillions lost, SABC reporting it. I mean, that should have raised immediate red flags, given that the banks made a total of 450 billion in revenue the whole of last year. I mean, they made 100 billion in profit last year. That's a lot of money, but it's nowhere near 1 trillion a day. That is more than the entire global economy, and it's one of those crazy sums. And the fact that it's raised no flags is deeply problematic. I mean, it's just a ridiculous sum. It's ridiculous from start to finish.
Now, Robert, you spoke to academic accountant and analyst Kais Tole about this, and he gave a different kind of perspective. Just take us into confidence on that one.
Well, he said, I mean, it could never have been true because the fact is that, you have, banks make, for example, there's $7.5 trillion of currency traded across the world, right? That's across the world, of which South Africa is less than 1%. So you'd have basically far less per day traded in South Africa, which only a tiny fraction on that. If you go and swap dollars for rands at a foreign currency outlet, you'll pay a commission of, say, 0.5, 0.55%. It's quite small. So only a tiny portion of that 1% is local, right? And then the vast majority of that is legitimate. So the amount of money made illicitly in this would have been fractions. I mean, there's, by his calculations, 6.5 billion rand per day made in sort of margin on forex trades, of which you'd have to say 99.9% of that would have been legitimate.
Now,
so the fact is, that's how completely off the numbers were.
Now, Rob, also, this is something that has been widely debated. Who should be held accountable here? The individuals that engaged in these activities or the banks in which these individuals operated under?
That's a good point, because the fact is you as a trader are representing a bank. You have been mandated to represent a bank. The fact is that these were rogue traders who decided to do this for various reasons. There was a bit of a boys' club. They would do it to make their own particular divisions. They'd make a slight turn, slight bit of extra profit, which would feed into their bonuses. So it was personal reasons for doing this. And there was certainly no sense yet, there's never been any evidence shown that the banks or the executives were aware of this or that this was policy. So the consequence from that, the implication of that is that this is rogue activity. And hence you'd want to see, and you have seen actually globally, some of those traders being held accountable. You've seen one person sent to jail in the US for that. You've seen 2 other traders from, I think it was Barclays and JP Morgan, doing plea deals with the US Department of Justice. So the banks are paying settlements across the globe, and they have been paying because these were mandated people who worked for them. But certainly you want to see the individual traders being held accountable for what happened.
Rob, of course, this case has been going on actually for ages. It's been on our radar for quite a while, but we are seeing a renewed public outrage, and we're also seeing renewed political outrage. And I'm wondering if that also doesn't hinge on the lack of accountability that South Africans often see for financial crime. And that is what's also causing it to be a low-hanging fruit in terms of politicization.
Absolutely. I mean, I do think that the fact that our NPA hasn't been able to bring charges against people in the Steinhoff case, against EOH, against various other cases, is definitely a factor. There's the definite sentiment that there's accountability for corporate crimes. So that is part of the outrage, absolutely. I think that the governing ANC has made a lot of this. I mean, they've talked about how this illustrates that there were others trying to drive down the rand, not them, and the fact that they've been blamed for the fall of the rand over the past 10 years when actually it was rogue bankers has been the narrative they've stuck to. But again, that is just complete junk. I mean, this would not have contributed towards any move like that in the rand. The rand has dropped 86% over a decade. From, I think, 2013, when this activity was sort of ended, the rand was about 10 rand to the dollar. It's now about 18, 19. This would only have affected things absolutely on the margin, 0.001% of a value in the rand-dollar exchange rate, say, and that would immediately correct because of the size of the market. So it speaks to an economic ignorance, I think, in our governing party, and that is deeply worrying, because this is a party that's in charge of our country, and it's a party that's instituting policies like national health insurance, and you'd want to have a sense that they are clued up on the economic implications of their policies. So when they say things like this, it indicates that perhaps they don't have a grasp on the economics, and certainly there are individuals in the government, Treasury and other places who do, but not from the statement from the minister and the presidency this week.
Rob, so would you say that it is not possible to change the trajectory of the rand over the long term?
Absolutely not. I mean, that's the point. It's this massive, as Tito Mboweni said in Parliament in 2018 when he was asked about this, the markets are so deep and so liquid, and there's so much currency traded. South Africa, the rand is one of the most widely traded emerging market currencies. So it reflects what happens in our balance of payments, our current accounts. It reflects the value of our economy, the fact that GDP hasn't really done much to average above 2% over the past decade. It reflects the economic frailties of a country. It's the share price of a country more than anything. So you can't rig that, certainly over the long term. You can't rig the value and change the value. So, that is impossible. And as the Minister of Finance said back in 2018, this is not what happened.
And Rob, I must ask you then about just looking ahead, safeguarding possibly banks and society from this happening again. I'm wondering, I mean, the Competition Commission is the one spearheading the investigation at this point. It sits with competition authorities. But I mean, we have, for instance, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. We have the NPA, as you've also noted there. Is this where the buck will stop? It will be a competition issue, and that will be all of it. Because I'm just wondering about the precedent that we then set about accountability.
Well, the problem with this is, accountability-wise, is that this kind of activity was only criminalized, I think it was about 2017. So you wouldn't be able to then prosecute people on the score. There have been prosecutions overseas, like I mentioned, and people have gone to jail for this. What you certainly can do is you can get settlements from the bank, you can get admissions of guilt, and you can put in place better systems of oversight. And I think that that's what we need to check and make sure that that is done so that this doesn't happen again.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and giving us insights on that much debated topic, Rob. That was Financial Mail's Rob Rose.